Welcome to 10 Years Out, Stories from My Queer Community. I'm your host, Sam. I identify as queer. My pronouns are she, her, and this is my 10 years out. Today on the podcast is my new friend, Janan.
Hi.
Hi, Janan.
Hey.
Thanks for coming on.
This is so cool. This is so great.
Janan and I got connected in a random way, but not so random given what year we live in. A friend of mine shared a reel on Instagram of you talking about your background, which I'm not going to give any spoilers on. But when my friend sent it to me, I was like, oh, I need to reach out to Janan and see if she wants to be on my Pride podcast. Sorry, what are your pronouns? I don't know your pronouns.
She, her.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
To see if she wants to be on my my Pride podcast, because based on what I saw from your story in that reel, I bet you've learned some things. So, what are your pronouns? We already did that. How do you identify, and how long have you been out?
Sure. Identify as queer, and coming out was like a slow fade in. So it's challenging to say. I never really had a moment in the public sphere where I was just like, hey, world, guess what? I guess if I were to put like a tick on one moment in my life, it was the time I came out to my mom and then the time I came out to my dad. I was 19, and I've actually never thought about this, like the years that have passed. I was 19, and then with my dad, I was 22. And I really count the dad one the most because, yeah, my dad's Palestinian, Muslim guy. Anyway, that was 22. I'm 35. I'm doing math live on a podcast, and that's 13. That's 13 years. 13 years, though. If you count this, the first time I was like in public as a, non-straight person, I was maybe 16 or 17. So like almost 20 years.
Okay. Yeah, a lot
Wow.
of people have like part A and part B of their coming out stories.
Yeah.
And some people just have a long fade, which is totally valid.
Yeah.
So what do we need to know about your story before your backstory, before we get into what you've learned since coming out?
Well, now I am a yoga teacher and a stand-up comedian, which both go so well with the background that I have, because the only thing I could do at the end of the day is just laugh and find a deep meaning and connection in all the things that have happened to and with and around me. I was raised here in Texas. Where are you, by the way?
I'm in West Virginia.
Oh, okay. Okay. I didn't want to make the assumption. Okay, cool. So we're one time zone away from each other.
Yeah.
And I'm born and raised here in Texas. I've only lived outside of Texas for 2 years. And I am half Palestinian. My dad's, he's a Palestinian from a refugee family. So he wasn't even born there. He was born in or around a refugee camp in Kuwait.
Oh my goodness.
So my grandparents met at the refugee camp. They were forcibly removed from their homes in northern Palestine, which nowadays people call Israel, and had a lot of kids. And one of the kids, my dad, got a scholarship to Texas A&M of all places.
Gosh.
For software engineering in the 80s. And
Whoa.
He showed up with his handlebar mustache and his curly Arab guy fro and was like, hello. And him and my mom fell in love. She's a white Southern lady who just happened to be finishing up high school at the time. She's like a senior in high school and College Station. They met via my grandma, who's the most like country lady you could have ever did meet. And they got married, waited 7 years to have me. I'm the oldest. And I was born in Austin, Texas.
Nice.
Lived there for a good chunk of time and then just moved all around all over Texas. I was raised Muslim, so I went to Islamic school. I would say about half of the years I was in school, I was in a full-on Islamic school. And the other half I was either in like smart kids private schools or like a fancy public school, but I would go to Islamic school on like Saturdays or Sundays, whatever it was in the city.
Cool.
listeners and Sam, please know that I am not a representation of Islam and how all Muslims are. My story comes from a really strange community of very, very conservative, backwards people. Like it was, am I allowed to curse on the show? It's okay if
Sure.
not.
No,
It
it's
was
fine.
fucked. It was fucked up. It was a fucked up community. I wish all those people the best and I wish them well and I hope they change many of their ways. But at the time, it was very like gossip, slander, a lot of like witch hunting activity. We would look out into regular American society and be like, they're idiots. Can you believe they let women in bikinis? Like, in Islamic studies, I learned not only like the history of like religions and stuff through the lens of conservative Islam, but also learned the literal geography of hellfire and like the specific punishments that one will get for the things that they do, including acting like a homosexual. Because I was told you could be gay, you could be queer, whatever. You just can't act on it.
Uh-huh.
Like at that point, just become a nun, like the
Mm-hmm.
Muslim version of a nun.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're like the master of calming your animalistic instincts,
Mm-hmm.
and you could like use all of your energy for God instead of for, HIV getting or something like that. So,
There
so
seems to be a lot of overlap between your conservative Islamic community and evangelical Christianity in the South.
oh yeah. No, which is so interesting because I'm like it's like double down,
Uh-huh.
in Texas and then also really, really Muslim. And then 9/11 happened and the Texans and the Muslims were like, maybe we don't get along. It was such a strange time to be in that space. I wore hijab for 4 years as well. If you don't know what that is, hijab is the head covering. I was not forced. I decided to on my own because if you wanted to be popular in this Muslim community with the other women, you actually became more religious.
Gotcha.
However, being half American, growing up in regular mainstream American culture, like MTV is awesome, music is amazing. I want to go to the concerts, so I lived like a double life for a good number of years. I, we weren't allowed to date or like be alone with the opposite sex. I have a stand-up joke that's just like they were like, okay, Janan, you can't hang out with the boys. You can no longer study with the boys or play with the boys. You can only hang out with the girls. And I was just like, thank you for leaving me alone with your daughters. And at a point when I was 17, almost 18, I had started using different kinds of drugs, like stealing pills from people's parents and, um, you know, getting people to buy us alcohol and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I hit a lot of different rock bottoms. Whenever I thought there was going to be a stronger rock bottom than the one I was on, or like a lower rock bottom than the one I was on, it would just, the floor would open up. So I ended up like being a little homeless. And I mean a little because like I wasn't as homeless as the poor folk that you see now, but like there was about a month there where I didn't have a place to sleep because I had moved out and didn't have work or any life skills at all. Got to a point to where I was like, I can no longer live this sort of double life where I'm just like doing what I want to do, like dating all these people. Because I wasn't making decisions from a place of love. I was making the decisions from a place of like rebellion and only rebellion. Yeah. And I don't remember where I started that sentence with, but basically the point I was getting to was I found yoga. So ironically, my parents actually divorced. My mom left my dad for a woman.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I know. I know. No one saw it coming. I mean, in hindsight, we're like, okay, yeah, like we could kind of see the sights, but our household was pretty anger filled, and my parents themselves, they have pure souls and they're good people, but there were a lot of abusive moments in my childhood, like a lot, because they come from families of abuse. So I'm just in a long line of like, trauma, me. Parents divorced. My mom, like I came out to my mom, and then that's when she left my dad. Just timing was not on purpose on her part, but it did
Yeah,
make it a lot harder for me to tell my dad.
oh
But
no.
yeah, and so after the divorce, he got really, really depressed. A friend told him to join yoga. He's like, okay, fine. He ended up loving it, which you wouldn't think a really hardcore Muslim guy would get into going to like warm yoga classes in Dallas to all these skinny white ladies, but he did. And he invited me to go. I said no for a long time because it weirded me out. I thought it was Taibo. Like I didn't know what yoga was. I thought it was gonna be lame. And it kind of is lame, but I liked it. So I went and was just like, this is great, and started going all the time. Him and I enrolled in yoga teacher training together
Oh, how
back in
fun.
2013. I felt like I was getting to know my dad for this first time because he had like, given up a lot of old ways
Mm.
from, the big break that happened in his life. I came out to him during the training because it became obvious living a lie is just gonna like cause disease in my heart and soul and actual body. He took it pretty well. But better than I thought. Uh, just was like, I love you no matter what. Cool.
Wow.
And our relationship has been on a journey since then. Because then he met a new wife who was really religious, and he was like, "Never mind, I'm not cool with it.
Ah.
I won't talk to you ever again. I'm so sorry." And then like a few weeks later, he was like, "Hey, how are you?" And I'm like, "What are you doing?"
Huh.
He was sending me funny memes, and I'm like, "What? You said you said you were inside to me." So, he's just a guy that was also super brainwashed by a very conservative upbringing and has a lot of fear around it. So I know he's doing his best, and we're great now. Like he finally, after 8 years of knowing that I'm with my now forever person, came and visited us and hung out like 3 months ago.
That's awesome. What have you learned since coming out?
Two main things. One is the importance of personal responsibility.
Mm.
And there's a good chunk of time in which either I was actively rebelling or trying to fit in. And that's yes, before I came out and also after. And when I was doing those two things, instead of taking ownership and authorship of my own story, I was just letting it write me, letting what other people say and think and do write how I want to feel every day and the kind of person I want to be every day. And personal responsibility can be a hard pill to swallow, especially like when traumatizing things have happened.
Mm.
Because it's like the anger I feel toward, folks that have said hateful things to me, when my dad didn't accept me in the moment, certain parts of my relationship with my mom in the past, the anger I feel about it is justified, like
Sure.
that sucks. And I'm allowed to have those feelings. However, it would be irresponsible to have those feelings be what drives my everyday actions and also my overall perspective. So personal responsibility, like I was saying, it's a hard pill to swallow because it's just like, I want so badly for other people to change, for conservative folks to like pull their heads out of their butts and like see what they're doing isn't good for themselves or the world.
Right.
I also personal responsibility in terms of just like the queer world in general. Like I've had a couple of people in the past get upset with me for not being like enough of an activist about things.
Okay.
So it's almost like I'm not like fighting the fight enough. And in that way, I mean, my personal responsibility is to live my life happily. And for me, it's like, hell yes, I want everyone to have equal rights. Everyone, queer people, people of color, poorer folks, just anyone who is being treated unfairly. Of course, that's like every action I do, I'm ensuring that like I'm doing enough for that. However, if I'm letting that like maul or dilute the quality of my own life, then I'm ultimately like being like, part of the problem. Because it's like when there are two sides opposing each other, they both have taken up a position and they're just going to be like, it's just going to be this forever. If we just stop playing the game and start living while also like standing for what we believe in. That's where I've learned that like personal responsibility is my greatest tool. I almost said weapon. But I do mean it as a weapon. I do mean it as a weapon. And like that's a nuanced thing. That's a whole nother podcast topic. But basically, like a good warrior, a good samurai, a good, like ancient person in battle is the best when they never have to use their weapon. And so that's what I mean by that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing, so personal responsibility is the first big thing that I've learned. The second thing that I've learned, and it stems out of that, is we each have the power to create heaven on earth. We each have the power to stop cycles that which have caused suffering and pain. And creating heaven on earth looks like radical acceptance, radical forgiveness, and then like trust in something bigger. So this is my yoga teacher talking now for sure. It's and so forgiving those that which even currently do wrong, even currently hate, even currently like don't accept me. I've just got to like be who I wish they would be. And so what I have strived to do and what I've learned to do is like at any given moment, I can walk into a room and create heaven on earth, even if I'm walking into a room of Westboro Baptist Church folk or people who are super into Blue Lives Matter and not Black Lives Matter, or hanging around my dad's side of the family. Like personal responsibility leads me into being able to create the harmony that I want to see. And it's not pacifism. That's not what I'm saying either. I just mean like really being able to get how and why someone ends up the way they are. Because like I either got to just be like, okay, the devil is real and they're evil, which seems like a freaking cop out, or something has happened that I have no experience with that has this person really feel like they're doing something right. So what could I learn? What could I see? How could I have them feel heard? How could I have them feel listened to while still being myself?
I mean, that's beautiful. And I think we all need to strive to do that more with the people in our lives.
I wish people understood the relationship between spirit/soul and live like everyday lived life in our bodies. Oftentimes our physical body is seen as like just separate from mental and separate from spiritual. I believe they're all the same. And so the reason why I want people to understand the interconnectedness, really not even interconnectedness, because that means they're apart, but then they have lines between them. They are just the same thing. They're the same thing. Humans will always feel feelings that are either pleasurable or painful. Okay, cool. Okay, I'm going to go through all these ups and downs, and I'm still content. I'm still happy. When I make decisions to either do this certain workout or watch this certain show or have this particular conversation, or even like make choices about like how I dress or just how I'm presenting myself in the world, if I haven't resolved or even started to resolve, I'm not saying everyone should become enlightened before they do anything. That's insane. But if I haven't started on that journey and I start to go do those other things, I'm never going to feel satisfied. There will always be an emptiness. I don't believe that organized religion is like the answer, you know what I'm saying? However, I do feel like belief in something is something, and then rituals around that are key to have a person start on that journey so that then they can make choices about themselves. And I'm speaking from personal experience because I had so many different phases after I came out of like who I thought I was and like what I wanted to be, and if I wanted to like change my pronouns or start taking hormones or anything like that. I had a little like notion of just like start with the soul stuff first. And when I did that, I have since in the past, like even 5 years, even 3 years, it's not even been that long, made choices about who I say I am in the world, how I represent myself as a queer woman that I might not have made before. And I'm really glad that I went and found my wholeness and my spiritual happiness before doing that, because it's my mental health is so much more safe than it was before. I I feel like I have a foundation to make decisions on versus like nothing at all, and then trying to like use the decisions to patch up how like fucked I felt in general with how my mind felt and how like kind of lost I felt. I was like,
Right, right.
I don't belong in this body. I don't. Uh, um, yeah, and with personal responsibility being like the end result of that, I'm now like, oh man, like I don't care how society actually sees me, whether I'm Arab or a woman, or by the way, I'm really short or short. I'm gonna just act the way I want to act. And then the way I act is going to define those things. Like when you think of an Arab person, I hope eventually that not just like dudes in a turban and women in a scarf pop up in people's heads, but like a queer tattoo having cool person like me is also like, yeah, that's Arabs can just look like everybody, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So that's what I wish what people understood is that it starts with spirit. It starts with wholeness in the spirit and the soul, so that then they can make decisions about their mind and their bodies.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's something that I have struggled with personally since coming out, because it's indirectly related to coming out, because I left the evangelical church behind when I came out, and then I tried to I tried to be one of those queer Christians who somehow balances both of them.
Yep.
But at the point when, and I'm not going to talk about this too much because there are other episodes where I go into it more, but at the point when my foundation in Christianity and the evangelical church started getting shaky because of the Bible and interpretations,
Mm-hmm.
I I left it behind. Um,
Yep.
and people talk about being spiritual but not religious, and I don't know what that means. Like
It doesn't mean anything.
I don't understand spirituality without a religion.
Yeah.
I have no concept of being a spiritual person, or nurturing my spiritual self, or listening to my spiritual self. Like it means nothing to me without
Yeah.
associating it with a religion. So that's
Yeah.
something that I personally have like right now I'm just focusing on the physical and the mental and the emotional, and if I somehow figure out what the spiritual side of me is, sure, I will nurture that at that point.
Yeah. That's so the same. I mean, how many gay Muslims do you know?
You're the
Pro
first.
Probably none. And I don't really even go around going, I'm Muslim. Like I haven't been in a mosque and I don't know how. I've been in the mosque in Turkey as a tourist. Like I haven't
Yeah, I guess it
actually been.
means if you mean practicing or cultural too.
Yeah. And so, I had kind of that break as well. I was like, dang, is there's even such a thing as progressive Islam? Because like I really would like a community of people in my culture that I can relate to,
Right.
that like do these beautiful rituals to worship something that's bigger than all of us, but isn't that old man with a beard in the sky being like, you better please me, children, or I will
Mm-hmm.
burn you in a fire. Like that's insane, first of all.
Why does your God have a German accent?
I don't know.
We
He's
can get into that later.
So, I've done a good amount of like research in the whole world of like, okay, progressive religions, how does it look? Christianity does a pretty good job of having different sects that are just like, anything goes, bros. You do you. Jesus loves. And like, that's cool. And that might work for some folks since it isn't like any part of my existence on this planet in this life. It's hard for me to get into that. So this is something that you could just check out because it's like really cool. It's called the Queer Muslim Project.
Okay.
And it's a whole Instagram dedicated to trans and queer and just like all different identities,
Oh,
Muslims
sweet.
sharing their stories. And like I thought, first of all, these people would all be murdered by
Mm.
like real Muslims, but that's
Mm-hmm.
not the case. I just grew up in such a crazy little community. what I've come to learn is like, okay, Janan, you either got to do one of two things. I guess one of three things. The first thing is don't try it all and kind of quietly suffer about it and just turn a blind eye and ignore it, which is what I had been doing for a good number of years and being like yoga, namaste, spiritual, spiritual
Yeah.
but not religious.
Yeah.
That kind of works. I'm not bashing on that hard. Like yoga isn't a religion, but it is a lifestyle that very much imitates one.
Right.
So anyway, second option is just go to a masjid that's okay or a church that's okay and turn a blind eye to all those things from the Bible or the Quran that are problematic for who I am. The third one is change the religion. The third one is don't just assume that everybody who practices the religion knows what the hell they're talking about, even if they're the world's most premier scholar, and go find out for my effing self. Like, which means a lot of work. It would mean for the Quran learning Arabic and like interpreting for myself. Am I interested in doing that? No. Though I have found folks who are interested in doing that have dedicated their lives to that. Now I like talk to them on social media and I've created like a little mini community with them. And so I'm not like a full-on practicing queer Muslim or anything like that. However, I have found more solace in knowing that like, oh, actually, according to the folks that truly represent the religion for me, that have like looked into the teachings in a way some people haven't and like completely refuted what I thought was irrefutable, knowing that they're doing that. And when they say like, hey, God, Allah, like the entity that which we cannot describe because it is not human in any way whatsoever, is not going to smite you or send you to hell because that's crazy. And you being thankful is actually for you to feel good. Please do that. That's the kind of teachings I listen to. And I'm like, all right, that's relaxing. I feel so much better that I'm not having to like fit into this perfect little Muslim box to just be like accepted and normal. Is it by all Muslims? Hell no. But it's by me and the people I care about, which is kind of like exactly what queer culture is as well. Long story short is of those three options, I've chosen the third, change the religion. Now, I'm not a person that's going out there and like studying and becoming an imam and like giving sermons, yet I support the people who are doing that. Yeah.
We need all sorts because we need to make heaven on earth. I'll let you know if I ever connect with a spiritual side of myself, quote unquote.
Well, I don't have anything to say about that other than you can't not connect with it because you're speaking out of it right now.
Gotcha. I'm going to think about this. It's way easier.
It doesn't need to be all like, woo, for it to be spiritual. It's just like this freaking plastic bag from HEB is a spiritual entity. It just is. It exists. It's magical and beautiful.
I appreciate that perspective a lot. I'm gonna take that with me. I'm gonna think about that.
Yeah.
If you could go back to your past self, what would you tell yourself?
Well, I do this in therapy all the time. So.
Yep.
So let me just pull up my latest session. Well, I would tell myself that no one deserves anything bad that happens to them. You don't deserve anything bad that ever happens to you. Anything good that happens to you is not on a deserve or don't deserve basis. It is just it's those things are like the signposts to keep pointing you back to like love and happiness and forgiveness. So pay attention to those. And then I would say that you're a strong ass bee and you can do anything you want.
That's cool. Is there a quote or song lyric that you would like to leave us with?
No matter what, especially when I don't know what to do or I feel like reacting, what I do know that is always true is to respond with love. Nancy Perry, if you're listening to this, correct me if I quoted you wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is like one of your mantras. So thank you for saying it over and over again.
Yeah, it's great.
Responding with love.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for being on. I hope that this was enjoyable for you.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you for reaching out and having me.
Yeah.
I love having these kinds of conversations. It's like the reason I even have my own podcast is so I could just talk more about the things I want to talk about versus, like the everyday stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally get it. Listeners, if you want to connect with Janan, all of her links are going to be in the bio, in the show notes. So you can find anything there. And until the next episode, keep acting out of love and trying to create heaven on earth.
Yes. Thank you, Sam.
Bye.
See ya.